Good afternoon and welcome to H3 TV, where we talk about how do you navigate disruption, but not just navigate disruption, navigate it with hope, health, and happiness. Sometimes we allow disruption to define us, to say, this is what I went through and this is who I am. Well, that's not true. It's just a part of your story to have a disruption be part of you. And so I love to meet you every week and teach you how to soar above your circumstances. H3 TV talk show started right as COVID was going on in 2020 to meet you where you're at in your office or in your home and offer you some encouragement, education, inspiration. And every week, I like to come to you with a new guest to share their ideas and inspiration. So please help me welcome my friend Genein to the stage. Hey, Genein, thanks for being with me.
It's amazing to be here. It's an honor to be here because I look up to you as a mentor and a bright light in this world.
Thank you so much. So tell us a little bit about you. Who are you? What do you do? Where do you live? All the good stuff.
So I'm a person who just loves being alive right now. I'm Janine. I am a speaker by craft now, but an educator by trade. I taught elementary school for 15 years. I ran the music program, the art program, and then what we're going to talk about later today, how that shift happened to what I'm doing today. But I am speaking and training companies and organizations and leaders on bringing out their creative aspects by also developing their cultural development and their cultural awareness and cultural competence. And so we're looking at the intersection with that. And because I have an elementary school background, it's all like interactive play, Play-Doh, Legos, the arts. I'm really big on bringing the arts into corporate. I think it's time to get the world to sing and dance and paint again. But looking at how does that tie into leadership skills. And so that's really what I'm doing today.
And we can grow so much when we're allowing our creative mind to lead us. I forgot to say to our listeners, if you have questions or comments at any time throughout the interview, please put them in the chat box and we will make sure to respond to them all. If not on the show, we will respond to them afterwards in the chat. So Genein, when I say the word disruption or storm or interruption, what comes to mind for you?
Well, I am, like I said, an educator by trade. So I always look up the etymology of the word because you could tell a lot about just people by their names and the words. And disruption, the etymology is to break, right? To break apart. And what does that look like? And to me, yeah, disruption is a break in the routine, right? Or a break in your norm. And that's what I've seen in my life at certain times. And definitely I've heard your story. You've had some breaks, right?
Yeah,
Some
definitely.
lucky ones and some not so lucky ones. And so really that's what disruption means to me when you're knocked off of your normal pattern of action and thinking.
I love that. Great description and great visual, which I always love. Descriptions that are visual to help me think about, yes, it broke my step, it broke my path, it broke my rhythm, my routine. And I had to take a step back to look. And how about for you personally, Genein, what disruptions have you faced that you think of that you've gone through when you think of, man, that was really a turning point in my life? Is there a disruption that you went through?
I want to talk about the disruption, and this is almost weird because a lot of times people think disruption is an external force, right? Just something out of your control that happens to you. And for me, I believe the disruption that I want to share is me voluntarily leaving my position in 2019.
Mm,
And just I come from a faith background, so just kind of being led to go to the next level, but not really knowing where that next level was. I didn't have a job lined up. I didn't have prospects out there, but I felt kind of pushed. I've been teaching for 15 years, and I just felt it was time to step out, figuratively and literally as well. And so I almost had a disruption come from the inside, if that makes sense,
for sure.
as opposed to like being laid off or whatever. And I left. I left my job. I left my benefits. I left. And being a teacher, and the pay may not be incredibly well, but the benefits are there. And my husband's self-employed, so I was the one carrying the benefits with a
Mm,
1-year-old child at that. And
mm,
so I don't recommend it for everyone, but that's where I was. So I internally disrupted because I felt that I was being pushed out to the next level, almost birthing, that that
Mm.
that birthing of the pains of where you were, it was time to go. And so that's really what I wanted to share about today. Me leaving my position in 2019, not knowing there was a world global pandemic around the corner,
Exactly.
having some savings, but or I'm assuming you can go through savings rather quickly, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, that was the beginning of my disruptive phase.
Yeah, and I think, Janine, one thing you remind us, which I've shared before, but I think is such a great reminder, is sometimes we choose those disruptions. Sometimes we feel called to those disruptions. Sometimes we leave where we're living or a career or a relationship because we're like, this is supposed to be something different, something more. What does that look like? And so when we left our home in 2020, in the midst of all this going on, it is like, oh, wait a minute. I forgot about all the things about where you've lived for so long, all the things about where you've taught for so long. And so,
Yeah.
on those days that are hard, because as amazing as it is to be your own boss, it is just equally as difficult and challenging. So, how do you stay hopeful? And are there moments that you go, wait a minute, did I make the right decision? How is that supposed to be? How do you stay hopeful in this choice and calling to step out of something you knew of that security? How do you stay hopeful?
Yeah, I just, I honestly believe in any like a 10 years from now or 20 years from now, I'm going to have a lifetime movie, and you're going to be on it. So right now, kind of choose who you want to play you. And so what I want to kind of backtrack. So me leaving the school, and I wasn't a teacher that went to several schools. Like I had one school taught at for my entire career. So this is all I've ever known, right? Different grades and different functions within the school. But so I left just knowing I felt I needed to teach about creativity. I saw the impact of lowering creativity in the K-12 system, but I also saw the impact of lowered creativity within the workforce.
Mm.
And so um, I was just aware. I feel like we need to increase our observational awareness of just what's going on around us and what themes are going on and start to make connections. And so I started just which I think there's about the time that I kind of met you, maybe 2020 or so. We were on Innovation Women, and I would go through those things and I would just send out blind emails like, hey, are you looking for a speaker to talk about creativity? But because I was aware
Mm.
and hungry to take it to the next level, whatever that was, I realized I went to the cultural competence training, and I was aware that the same training to increase your cultural competence, which is your ability to connect with people from different lived backgrounds, not just ethnic or national culture, but either tech culture, just different groups of
Yeah.
people. Those were the same cognitive skills that are needed to increase your creative thinking.
Uh,
So if you're working on increasing your cultural competence and your awareness, you're working on observing well, you're working on listening well, you're working on making connections, you're working on perspective shifting and seeing things from other people's point of view. You're working on your empathy and your curiosity, asking good questions, right? All of those cognitive behaviors are the same behaviors that you need to increase your creative thinking. And so because I was aware during this huge transitional shift, because I've been working full time since I was 16 years old, making my first job was what, $4.25 an hour. I'm still like, I was just aware that they intersected. And
mm.
so it's like, okay, you have cultural competence and creative thinking. Why not something called intercultural creativity? And the
Mm.
idea came to me November 28th,
Oh,
2020. I looked it up online. No one was using that term. I contacted a friend that I spoke with at California State Northridge, who was a trademark lawyer. He looked it up. No one was using that term, so I hired him to get it for me. And I believe you to this day, I had the idea on November 28th, 2020. I wrote the book. It showed up on my doorstep by Amazon November 28th, 2021.
wow.
To the day. So being
Day.
mindful of things like that, those were the things that kept me going because little, I call them just kisses from a God, right? Just little kisses would say, hey, Janine, you're on the right track. Hey, Janine, you're on the right track. And then the next thing, and then I'll pause it, but youth experience. When you get these LinkedIn messages, these texts with people holding your book,
Yeah.
and saying you've changed your life. And then, as you know, I'm working on my children's book as well. So I
Mhm.
have an adult book and then a children's book that has the same type of topic, but
Mhm.
different audience. When you get kids holding your book and
Mhm.
saying, my brain's beautiful or I'm creative, when
Mhm.
you're in your darkest low and your bank account had $16 in it, right? Which I took a screenshot when that did happen, just because I was like, no one's going to believe this, right? You look at those pictures of how your work is affecting people, and that just keeps you going.
Yeah. And you started with saying you were hungry. And
Yes.
always, when I meet new speakers, I just always want to know, how hungry are you? Because if you're not hungry, you're not going to make it, because it's hard work. Right. And I love, I'm a woman of faith as well. And I do think God whispers to us. And it's interesting, it's November 28th, because 28 is like my number two, but not always in the same way. But we moved to the beach on October 28th. The hurricane hit 11 months later on September 28th. And then my sister died July 28th. And so
Mm.
there's something about 28 that's powerful, Janine. So I love that you're paying attention to those dates. I think you're also staying open, and that's why you stay hopeful. And then it is like, it's nice to have money in our bank account, but it's amazing, amazing to have people hold up your work and say, you made a difference in my life. You validated me, because we think of the arts, sadly, many people think of the arts of, okay, yeah, but get a real job. Yeah, but I
Mm-hmm.
want to be a writer. Oh, come on, but get a real job. But I want to be a painter, but I want to sing, but I love color. Come on, tone down, tone down. And you are saying, wait a minute,
Mm-hmm.
stop
Mm-hmm.
quieting these people, and you're giving voice and value to how people's brains learn and think. And you're recognizing that this is a gifting, not a detour. It's not a side job. It is part of what makes any job excellent, is to live in our colorful creative self. So I love that. How about, how did you stay healthy? How did you take care of yourself when the bank account was low, when you were nervous, when you're like, wait a minute, we're both entrepreneurs, honey. I love you, but was this a good idea? Wait a minute, can you get a job? Because I'm excited. So yeah, yeah. How
Yeah.
did you stay healthy? What did you do to take care of yourself? What are your
Once,
practices?
yeah. Once again, first of all, I just want to clarify. So when I say creativity, I don't just mean artistry for people, because artistry is a part of creativity and a significant part.
Yeah.
And we have research of showing why it's so significant. But creative ideas, which
Yes.
you align with, just thinking of new ideas. You can be creative in, accounting or tech or whatever. Um, but at the same time, we are trying to advocate to corporate of bringing in artistry as well. And Carnegie has done some work with bringing in music during rest times, during break times, and how do we use the arts to impact the brain. And yes, I do have a brain on my desk, because we talk about keeping this healthy. So, to your question, how did I keep this healthy and this healthy? Because the brain is attached to the body
Yeah.
and the mind, right? The mind and brain are two different things, but of course, connected. Is My husband actually started this, because when he started his entrepreneur feat, he was like, you know what, I could really work 24/7. That is not cool. So he was really adamant in taking Saturday off, and we know for some faiths they call it the Sabbath. And so he was just kind of doing that while I was working at my full time job. But then when I started working full time, or actually doing my entrepreneurial feat, I just really investigated, okay, what is the Sabbath, in the secular form, but also in the faith-based form as well, and really understanding the importance of working well 5 to 6 days, but stopping. And it's really important, as we've had conversations of taking a break, but I even went deeper into the neuroscience of what's going on in your brain, why your brain needs breaks, because that's when your brain does the internal work. Neuroscientists call it the default mode network.
Mm.
And if you listen to the title, it's the default, like your brain defaults. And when you're in your default mode network, you are thinking more creatively, you're going inside, you're being curious with yourself. If you've ever stared out the window, you're like, why is that? Da, da, da? Well, she said that. Well, I wonder if we painted that blue instead of. You're in your default mode network, meaning the outside world isn't really taking your attention. You're really focused on this inner dialogue. And so, if you're not taking a break, your brain is unable to get to that default mode network um, form. And then another aspect, going from to the faith based area, is I believe the imagination is on heighten when you're taking breaks. So some of you may know some scripture like "Be still," right? Be still, and no, there's a reason for that. And so whether you're faith based or not, your brain needs to break, pause, because that's when the imagination circuits turns on. And Dr. Matthew Lieberman, who is like the father of cognitive neuroscience now, he was my professor at UCLA. But in the past 20 years since I left, he's been doing some work. So he's talking about it's your social network as well, right? Your mental social network, and so that's when your brain's really exercising of figuring out how to navigate social relationships. So we're looking at the imagination network and that social network as well. And so your brain can't get the exercise in those two areas if you're going 24/7. People talk about hustling. You should hustle, but you got to break for so many reasons.
That's right. Gotta rest. Oh, definitely. I'm not a big TV watcher, but I love Shark Tank because I say I might not know how to paint or color, but I know how to be creative. And that show always doesn't always say what's new, says what do we take that's good and make it great? How do we take something and expand our mind, how it could be better? So I love that your mind is that. Sleep. I'm a huge advocate for sleep and rest and quiet. I also love to work and would work all the time, but I force myself to not be on my computer on Sunday for sure, sometimes Saturday as well, because we do need that break. And I often, when I'm out with my daughter, like I'll be staring off into the, don't stare at those people. I'm like, I don't even see any people. I'm staring off in my own thoughts, in my own imagination, in my own, what else could I do? How else could I do it?
Now you have a term for her. You know what? I'm just in my default mode
I'm in my
network.
default. I say we turn our computer off more than we turn our mind off. We shut it down. But uh, Sabbath is kind of your how you have learned to take care of yourself is having that quiet. You're having that intention with your marriage of having making sure your husband has quiet, you have quiet times that you shut down, that you have a Sabbath. And we know it's biblical, but we know it is just so important. And we're not at our best when we're just going. And for me, I have a lot of medicine that I use. I always say, what's in your medicine cabinet? It's movement for me, it's music, and it is laughter. And so, how do you stay happy and silly and playful with yourself, with your family, with your friends in the midst of running our business? When I tell people, I wear every hat. I am sales, I am customer service, I am deliverables, I am it. Here's where it is. So, we need to have some laughter and humor in that. So, how do you stay happy and find humor in the midst of disruption, leaving the job, or just life every day?
You know, I am not, I don't say a closet karaoke singer because I karaoke out loud. So I always, I just internally. So part of my story is I stutter. So I have a speech impairment. I went through years of speech therapy, and I have a twin sister who's amazing, beautiful, but she won not but and she won speech debates and speaks fluently, poet and everything. And so growing up with that was it just took me a while to find my confidence and my identity. You know, if you have trouble communicating,
Yeah.
a lot of times people think it's your intelligence, and it's not. It's just you're stuck with the communication aspect. So I mean, I thought I wasn't creative. I thought I was dumb just because I couldn't communicate effectively. And so we know that in the brain, for people who stutter, especially stutter severely, I wasn't severe, and as you can hear now, I've gotten much better. But people who stutter severely, they don't stutter when they sing. It's quite odd. And so that would be my release because I was able to communicate fluently by singing. It's so
Uh-huh.
odd. I think there's different parts of the brain, which we now know. This is the corpus callosum right here, which connects both of the hemispheres. So when you're singing, when you're involving music, you're actually involving multiple parts of the brain on both sides. And so that's why musicians usually have a strongest corpus callosum, and that's why we're trying to push music for children, but for adults as well.
Uh-huh.
And we also know that singing increases just the chemicals, the neurochemicals that are needed for joy, and that. And so, sometimes you just feel happier after you sing. Even when you're dealing with a broken heart or a loss or you're grieving, just singing kind of helps move the energy, right? And that's what emotions are, energy in motion.
Yeah.
And so that's part of my work, and maybe what my doctorate might be on, just the importance of arts in well-being and in leadership. But what brings me joy is having a house of joy through the art. And it's funny raising my son who's 5 and seeing other people and their kids, usually what they are fanatic about, you see it in their children sometimes. So I have a friend who's a professional dancer, and her kids dance, and my son, sings and he moves just because that's what he sees us doing.
Yeah.
And and that's just the norm. I also make sure we go outside, we get that sunlight, we get the nature, right? The aesthetics of life. The,
Yeah.
the best aesthetic place that you can be is outside in the woods or next to the beach or some type of natural place. And so I'm learning to pull from the natural resources, my singing, my movement, what's going on in my brain, as opposed to just always thinking I have to buy joy or buy entertainment. That's
Mhm.
not like, hey, let's go do something. Okay, let's go do something for a fee. Like, no, there's plenty of things that can bring joy and peace that don't cost a thing. And in addition to that, of course, social time, making sure, which we usually leave that into our staff Sabbath time. Okay, what are we doing today? Sometimes we're just staying at home reading a book. That's totally fine.
Yeah.
But just what does that look like? And then fun things like I like getting pedicures. Like just like you have to be real with yourself. Like I like pedicures, or I like whatever that is, or I like to get my eyebrows, like
Yeah.
whatever it is.
That makes
Like
you feel good. Yeah.
to get facials every now and then. Just don't feel guilty about it if that's what brings you joy. But going back to that, that's really what the inner time is right? The being alone with yourself and trying to talk to yourself of what really brings you joy. I don't think a lot of people have had that inner work time. We're
Yeah.
so focused on the external resume, right? Okay, well, how do I look on paper? But we're
Yeah.
not. How do I look?
I think so. Janine, did you just hit mute?
No.
Okay, there
You,
you are. So our listeners want to know what is your favorite karaoke song to sing. They're dying to know it, so we got to know what is it. And then I want to tell you some things about music, but what's your
yeah.
favorite?
I would have to go, and I sang this at the LashCon. So I was asked to be the opening keynote for LashCon, which is people who do lashes. Like
Yeah.
there's people who do and it's a verb. Like, oh, did you lash today? Oh, I didn't lash today. It's like it's a verb. So I went to do LashCon, and they had a karaoke night, and so I sang, "Oh, I want to dance with somebody."
Ah,
They didn't know it was me because I had a whole other like costume on. And then the next morning I did the keynote. I was like, does this sound familiar? And it was just really funny. Like, oh, that was you.
oh
It was
my
really funny.
gosh, I love that.
But one point that I want to make before you go into your music connection is authenticity is key, especially for us speakers and writers and people who produce creative works into the world. And because I love to sing, that's a big part of me. The arts are a big part of me. They help me become the woman I am today. And also my background in education. I bring it to the workforce. I bring it to my keynotes. I bring it to my trainings. And I'm like, I don't care if I'm training the C-suite of $1 billion company. We're going to be singing. We're going to be moving. We're going to be interacting because this is how I teach. This is how I interact. And so they appreciate that authenticity, and they appreciate the fact that normally in their trainings they don't get to engage in that way. So it's something new.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just want to encourage your listeners to, when you get to that inner, like, who am I? What am I about? Where are my strengths?
Right.
If you can bring it into your work, even better.
So that, and if you can sing as a speaker, even better. So right before I got on this call with you, I was with a guy who's kind of thinking about flirting with the idea of becoming a professional speaker. And he said his favorite thing to do is karaoke. And he said, I used to have to wait an hour to go to the bar to sing. So now I set up a big karaoke at my house and I just invite a ton of people over to eat and drink. And I sing and they sing and we take turns singing. And he said it brings him so much joy. And I was like, absolutely. But so I think I said, well, if you can sing and you can speak, you're a double threat. There's a triple threat when you can dance, sing, and speak. I said, but I'm just a single threat because I can only speak. I like to sing and dance, but I'm not very good at it. But I had a music. I love music. And so yesterday my post was about like, I love musicals. So one of my things I do before I speak is I sing. I sing really loud in the car. I sing really loud at the hotel room just to get my voice ready, but also because it gives me that energy and that joy. And yesterday I shared, I don't know if you know the song Popular from Wicked.
Popular.
I want to be popular, right? So and I said, I don't know why, but that song just it just makes me laugh out loud. Like I could be having the worst day and I hear that song, I start singing along, I'm laughing and like even though you're the hardest case, I could help you. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's probably what people think when they meet you. You are a big case, but I could help you. So I love that. And then after I posted that, I saw Southwest Airlines. I don't know if you saw it yesterday. Sadly posted a man having a dementia episode and getting very angry on the plane. He got lost. He thought people were trying to get him. And the wife is hugging him and trying to tell the flight, please, please, please. He's not being violent. He's really scared. He's confused. And she got the flight attendants and then basically the whole plane to sing You Are My Sunshine. And finally he starts singing along and dancing with his wife because the music brought him back to safety and
I might need to find that story. That's a wonderful story to put in my next book, by the way. Yeah, but I mean, going back to the brain. That's why people, a lot of people with dementia, they use the arts to get them back, because something happens when you're lodging memories with. Of course, there's a lot of new research with memories and how they're encoded and everything. But when you're logging memories with music or with movement, just it's
yeah,
almost like just a deeper
for sure.
weaving, right?
Well, and
Uh,
think about you can play a song and you're like, oh my gosh, I remember that from high school. Oh, I remember my first date. Oh, I remember when I was with my girlfriends and we were dancing and singing. I mean, I
mhm.
always said to my daughter growing up, getting ready is more fun than going out as a young woman because you listen to loud music, you and your girlfriends are dancing around the house and you don't really, you think you look amazing. And then you go out, you're worried about being judged, whatever. Anyway, all right, let's keep moving on. So I want to ask you, what are some lessons that you have learned through the disruption by choice, by a calling, what are some of the lessons that you over the last few years that you're kind of surprised by? Maybe you didn't know walking away or something you learned or something that expanded your mind in a certain way.
Well, like I said at the beginning, the etymology of disruption is like to break, right? You're breaking routine, and in order to see new levels of yourself, you have to break routine for your brain to discover, and your mind to discover what else you can do. So even though leaving my students was very hard, for Janine to grow, I had to just disrupt that. And another aspect is there's something when you believe in yourself. It's very important to have a network of people who believe in you, and I have that. My mother gave me a little bit of seed money. I believe in you. I believe in this idea that hasn't been really, you know, presented. Intercultural creativity, and then our new ones, neurosomatic creativity, and now prismatic leadership. These are all new terms, right? Trademarkable terms that we've trademarked, but um, just knowing when you've had doors slammed in your face, I'm assuming, and just but still going and going, knowing you got something big. No one else knows it, right? I wrote the first book on intercultural creativity. No one else has heard that word before. Of course, I'm heavily researched, so everything's backed up by research and solid. The grounding's there, but it's like bamboo and really number one, besides my faith, really attaching what I was doing to the importance of the idea, the vision that I had, and metaphorically using these other things to help me keep moving on. So bamboo, like the diamond. Yes, I'm like the girl of props, so I have tons of props. So the diamond is the logo of my company, and understanding that people are diamonds. People are carrying diamonds within them, but they look like rocks to a lot of folks. And leaders may not be aware of how to really buff, diamond and cut the diamond well and extract all these hidden gifts. That's what prismatic leadership is about, helping leaders extract these hidden gifts and talents from other people. Adam Grant has a great book that just came out last month called Hidden Potential, and he has a diamond on his cover. I'm like, yes, he gets it, right? Because this is the decade of really looking into human potential and brain capital, right? And what that looks like. But my metaphor that I also use is the bamboo. And a lot of times, not a lot of times, the way bamboo grows is it grows the roots first for
Mm.
like 3 years. It's this long time. And then once it's ready to break ground, it breaks ground and it grows like an inch, a day. It just grows really, really quickly. And you have to be aware, using the metaphor of planting and seeds. And I'm pretty sure you've heard a lot of this is you have to get into the dirt and it's going to be dark for a while. But trees and plants that don't have good roots, they fall down really quickly. So those 2 years of just writing the work, writing the book, no one really knowing or caring who I was or what I had to say. I was like, I'll speak to anyone. I don't care if it's, two people, it's the Girl Scout, whoever wants to hear. I was taking free events, free gigs, just
Yeah.
speaking, just trying to get the word out and trying to practice, right?
Yeah.
And then my first big job hit at the Northeastern Association, and that led to another big job, and then it just rolled on there. But using metaphors to encourage me, metaphor of the diamond, the metaphor of the bamboo, and then knowing in my heart this idea is it. I feel it that I'm meant to give this to the world, so I can't give up just because my bank account's low before Christmas.
Yeah.
You and I have stories that we can really make a whole 2 hour drama from, but
Yeah.
it's about the keeping going. And Adam Grant talks about that in his book. It's not about how high did you go, period. It's where did you start, what did you go through to
Yeah.
get there. People see these wonderful stories at the end, but you weren't there for chapter one.
That's right. That's right. Or two, or maybe five too, you just know, or even the thought of beginning a business, that starts way before we started, of thinking of what would that look like and who cares and what will be my word. And I love the bamboo because I think it's reminding me so much about children, right? Like I have 3 adult kids, and like how many years of roots and how long does it take to shoot up? And then it goes so fast. And it's like, just kidding. So come back, come back. I didn't want you to ever leave me. And you're making me laugh because to Innovation Women in Bebby Carlson, which is where Genein and I met. I was in a small group. They do breakouts in it the other day. And this woman was like, oh my gosh, you're super successful. She's like, I sent out 5 RFPs yesterday. So as long as I get those 5, then I'll be good to go. And I was like, no, no, no.
Yeah.
I'm just super good at rejection. I'm like, I send out 10. If I get 1, I'm super
One.
happy.
I was like, those
I'm
are
like,
high
yes,
numbers.
and I think that so many different things, Genein, is that some people say, are you the best kept secret? Do you have wisdom we all need that we don't know that we need? And so that's part of yours. I was with another newer speaker the other day, and she got some negative feedback from 2 people. And she goes, what do you do? Like if someone doesn't like your book or doesn't like your speech? And I go, well, first of all, I plan on it. She's like, what? And I go, I plan for people to not like me. You do? I go, oh, I'm super sensitive. I don't want anyone to not like me, but they will. And I go, I'm working on becoming a Swiftie. I don't know what it means, but she teaches us haters gonna hate and shake it off, shake it off. And I said, and she's like, really? And I go, yes, because some people will not get you. I said, one thing I've learned is, first, not everyone will like us. Second of all, never assume. The knowledge that you have, Genein, the experience that you have from hands-on teaching at an elementary school is so valuable to the executive level. But sometimes we don't know what we don't know.
No, yes,
We
yes.
know what we need. And one of the lessons that we learn as we evolve as a speaker and a writer is not everybody knows what I know. Not everybody has seen through the lens that I've seen. In fact, most people haven't. So I've got to meet them where they're at and then help them raise. And I said, for me, when I think about professional speaking, if you're not irritating some people, if you're not making me think about something differently then you're not doing it right. Right? Like you have a new or creative way for us to think about intercultural, for us to think about creativity. And I love symbols, so I love that you have props. I'm not a big prop person. It helps me remember. Oh, the diamond lady. I'm the pineapple lady, right? Oh, the woman with the brain. She carries around a brain out. She's real brain. She's all about the research. But it helps us remember you when we forget your name. And I think all those lessons, not only do you make it easy for the audience to listen to you, but you make it easy for them to learn from you. And you give them lots of different ways. And one thing I think about as a teacher is, I was just talking to another guy this week, and he said his boss, he was reading a book on his lunch hour, and his boss said, is that a good use of time? And I was like, oh my gosh. And he said, he made me feel like a fool for reading. It was a waste of time. And I said, leaders are learners. Some people say readers are leaders, but I say leaders are learners. Some of us read it. Some of us see it through a symbol. Some of us watch it. Some of us go to a conference, but leaders are learners. And any way that we can absorb information, and I love symbol because I'm such a visual. So I want to ask you, and you kind of have already touched on this, but how are you using How are you using the lessons? And it's not just lessons, Janine, it's really bravery. And I don't want everybody listening to quit your job. Please don't quit your
Yeah,
job, because
yeah.
HR directors
I
like to
think that,
get them motivated, but not that motivated, Annie, that they all want to quit their job. But I want to say this is, Janine, how are you using, and you touch on this, how are you using your lessons and wisdom from stepping into your own disruption? And even if there was fear or unknown, being brave, how are you using what you've learned to pay it forward and teach? I know you're doing it with your audiences, but how else are you using the lessons you've learned on this journey?
well, that's going to a little bit connected to the point I wanted to expand on about rejection, right? I
Mhm.
just got some feedback on a training that I did, I think a year and a half ago, and I just got the feedback because I'm trying to just to make some more PDFs and all that good stuff. And so I read this training, and it reminds me of the words of Whitney Houston. I remember her saying this, and this is Whitney Houston, right? The singer. She was like, I can do a concert in 99, or like in front of thousands, and 999 people love it, and one person didn't. And she'll focus on that one person, right? And our brain tends to have a negative bias to it. And so it was good for me to hear her say that, because like, okay, Whitney Houston has this issue, you know. So with that, and you know, I do have trainings where there is everyone loves it, but one or two like, well, yeah, or one person said like this was a waste of my time, and and yeah, it hurts. But the words of Seth Godin ring true. Before I was even doing this, I was still teaching full time, and he really encourages people to ship, SHIP. Just what do you have? Do it with excellence, but you got to ship. You have to ship it out. And he says, and by the way, it's not for everyone. And so he talked about something, and his quote was, "It's not for you." And so that's what, or it's not for you yet. And you said it. Some people are on a journey, especially when you're talking about things that I'm talking about, like cultural lenses, internal models, how we can make assumptions automatically, which affect our cultural competence and our creative thinking, right? Bias, it affects creativity as well. When you're dealing with these things that can disrupt people's belief systems, you're treading in interesting waters. And you're going to have some
You
people
should.
who are not going to attach right away. Now, this is where my teaching ability comes in, because I've had several people say, "You're easy to connect to. I've never seen this topic taught this way." And I was actually engaged and intrigued to see how you were going to present it. So I will say that's probably why. And you can see on my Talkadot profile, I have like a 98, 99%. Um, but there's still that 2%, and I just talk to it myself. And what you're doing is called cognitive reappraisal. Like before you go into a situation, you're already aware that, hey, it may not be for everyone.
Yeah.
That's okay. We're all on our own journey. I'm not going to, number one, I'm not going to beat myself up because they didn't understand it, but I'm also going to be sensitive that they may have some type of previous lived experiences that may have made it difficult for them to connect to what I was trying to say. So as a teacher and a mother, we're very aware of the developmental process.
Yeah.
And so, talking about cultural development and inclusion and stuff, it can't be a 2 hour lecture in it anymore. We have to really change how we're doing it, because this is a developmental process.
That's
And
right.
I tell companies, don't expect you and me to go in for an hour or two and change the world
That's right.
when people have been dealing with these belief structures for 30 plus years.
Yeah.
That's not going to work. That's why it has to be multi-touch. Go practice this. Go practice building trust, looking people in the eye, being curious with your questions, shifting perspective. These are all behaviors, but cognitive behaviors that deal with emotion. You have to give people time to practice it and to walk it out.
Yeah. I've never heard that Whitney Houston before, because I say that. So that's very funny to me. I say to audiences, how many positives does it take to erase a negative? And people say 3 to 1, 5 to 1, 10 to 1. And I go, let me give you a picture. I have an audience of 1,000 people. 999 say I was amazing. One says ugly shoes. What am I thinking about on the way home? And depending on my PMS, I might pull over to Payless and buy some sparkly stilettos to hurt my back just to make nobody say that. And I go,
Yeah.
you have to decide. And as a speaker, you have to I'm like, it is vulnerable. We take the front of the room, people are going to judge us. I'm too short, I'm too tall, I'm too big, I'm too small, I talk too fast, I talk too slow, I'm too boring, I'm too excited, I'm too feminine, I'm not a feminine. I mean, people are just going to decide a story. So I have to decide. And this is where it shifted for me, Janine. This is where really my business shifted. And this is very true. And now I kind of try to remind audiences, I really wanted people to like me when I
Mhm.
started speaking. I really wanted them to like me. I wanted them to want to be my friend. I honestly wanted to do it to make friends more than money when I started. And what I realized one day looking in the mirror was that was all about my ego. It was about me wishing people liked me. And so now I tell my audiences, I don't care. I
Mhm.
actually don't care if you like me or not because I'm leaving. I care
Mhm.
about you liking you. And I
Mhm.
teach this to one person in this room, and I don't know who you are, that is feeling hopeless, unhealthy, unhappy, different, devalued, not enough, not seen, not cared for, that they're mean to themselves. And I said, I want you to look in the mirror and say, I'm amazing. Whether whatever Annie thinks, whatever your co, because when you start to like yourself, and that
Mhm.
for me goes back to a lot of, I just talked to another DEI speaker this week, and he was saying, I said, I'm getting asked to do a lot of DEI, but I'm just about the I. Just be inclusive, because if you're truly inclusive, people feel like they belong. But you have to first like yourself before
Yeah.
anyone else can like you, which you're going back, goes back to your like being authentically you, knowing who you are, bringing
Knowing yourself.
yourself, and knowing you might not be my cup of tea. Oh, well, I might not be your cup. Oh, well, I'm not there to be everyone's cup of tea. I'm there to challenge thought, to expand minds, and to encourage people to think differently and be gentler and more supportive toward themselves and others. And that's your brilliance, is that you know something, and
Mhm.
you are much more of a research speaker than I am, I would say, because I do not have all the stats, but you have knowledge of this and people don't. And
Mhm.
you, when I'm telling my friend the other day, shake it off, and I'm saying, if you are not getting people bothered by you, it's because you're just regurgitating what they already want, feel. We're not supposed to make people comfortable. We're supposed to make them expand. And expansion is uncomfortable. Have
Mhm.
you thought about this? Have you looked from someone else's lens? That's what you're teaching. That's brilliant, is that, oh, I never thought of that. Oh,
Yeah.
well, I didn't realize they felt that. I thought, well, just blah, 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 whatever our story is. I'm not
Mhm.
there to reaffirm a story. You're not there. We're here to expand people's minds. And that is the gift. That's the gift. Um, so it sounds like you're doing this in lots of different ways, through your speaking, through your writing. So is there one success story that you have had, one really like, where somebody, as we talked about holding our books, right? Where somebody wrote to you or told you the impact of your message, written or spoken, that affected them in their organization or individually, that you want to share with our listeners?
Well, I think with our topics, and tell me if you've yeah, had this experience, it's not like I'm speaking to radiologists, who are in their leadership role. To like this topic of intercultural creativity and neurosomatic creativity is it could be with every field at every level, right? And so I just find myself in different fields. I started in education, and then I wound up in healthcare, and then the beauty industry, and then just the finance and science, just pharmaceuticals as well. And I did a keynote last month for the Phoenix Indian Center. They hired me to do something for their developmental program for the western part of the United States. But here I am talking to hundreds of organizations of indigenous and native people, a demographic that I did not expect to address. And even though I'm like 0.02 Blackfoot, and my mom always says that's where you get your cheekbones from. I don't identify, and I can't prove. My mom can a little bit more, but I can't prove any indigenous blood. But the return of just the connectedness. And then a group came up and just said, just your spirit and the way that you approached it. We need to bring you to our organization to do in-person training. And if you know the history of the Native peoples on this earth, there has been a lot of trauma, and there has been a lot of just historical um, uh, uh, threading and issues to work through. And the fact that they think that intercultural creativity could be and not necessarily an all solution, right? There is no silver bullet, but at least something to move the needle, as one of my partner says, to move the needle in the right direction, to get people just to think differently and to come together in order to create. I see my work affecting people even when I'm no longer here. And really, that's what keeps me going. I co-write my books with my son and my husband, so he has full copyright. So it's not only just rippling out into the communities in the world. I see myself changing the generational footprint in my own family as well. We are creators, we are authors. My family will be publishing a book, one book per year. That's the goal. So this is a norm for my son. Like, we just write and publish books. Like, yeah, like we get up and watch, the news or whatever, which we don't. But it's like, this is the norm. I'm resetting the norm. That's
Yeah,
what I'm doing.
I
We
love.
are creators, but we are copyrighted and trademarked of these creations, right? People talk about the music business is more about the business than just the music.
That's
And we are creators for the community. The things that we create aren't just for us. We are not selfish creators, and I don't even know if that's possible. To truly create, we have to share and contribute these
right.
creations. But how do we do that? Being business minded, being empathetic as well. And so, really, that I feel is my gift to the world and why I'm doing what I'm doing. And I feel myself being an example. There's a lot of people come up to me like speakers, which one of my dreams is to co-do an event with you. I know that
We're
would
going
be
to do it. We're doing it. Yeah, it's happening.
but,
We just don't know when yet, but it's
we
happening.
don't know when. So we're announcing it now, right? Annie and
Who wants
Denise.
to come? Let us know if it's going to happen. We're not sure where. I live in Florida. You live in California, right?
I'm in Phoenix now. I just
Phoenix.
came
Oh,
to
Phoenix.
California. Yeah. But hey,
Phoenix.
I'll come to Florida.
And come to
but
Florida. We're going to do an event. Yeah.
but yeah, just what does that look like for like you and I and other people, just to empower the next wave of people who have messages, they just don't know how to get it out there. And then I'm coming in, how do you get your message out with people's brains in mind? How do you do something called neural synchronization, where you're synchronizing the brains of your audience so they tap into you and they're hooked on and they remember you 3 months from now? I had a woman email me. She's like, yeah, I found my diamond pen on my desk and I did a keynote in front of her 2 years ago. And she remembered me. And so we want to teach speakers, how do you get to the subconscious and the non-conscious levels of people? Because that's where most of the decisions are coming from, right? The
This is what I'm
subconscious.
seeing, Janine. I'm seeing when your head and heart, and I will have a heart, come home. And because I feel like we have to have that head piece, but we have to have
Hmm.
that heart piece. And when
Hmm.
we align that, we feel like we're home inside our own bodies. It's
Yeah.
about coming home to ourselves, knowing ourselves, and then
Hmm.
being able to go out into the world and do good work. I love this idea. I love it. Love it, love it, love it. I'm so excited. So many exciting things coming next year. So
Yeah.
Janine, I know our listeners are going to want to reach out to you to connect with you. What's the best way to connect with you?
I'm very active on LinkedIn, so I just love sharing the research, the neuroscience research behind what we're doing, what does creativity look like, and as well as cultural development. Of course, they can get my book here, and if you, I should do like Annie special, right? If you type in
Type
Annie,
in Annie, you get a
or
deal.
so give me a day or two. We can do like free shipping or
Annie
some
program.
money off.
Yeah.
But because Annie is a big Annie, you are the metaphor and the symbol of intercultural creativity, and I felt that when I first met you. You are very easy to connect to, but you're a learner and you're pulling from different areas, and each of these gems represent a different cognitive way of thinking and doing things, and you really exhibit that. So JeneinLetford.com. My business is Cafe Strategy. So we go out to corporations and organizations and school districts because I'm an educator by heart. So those are my people, right? And we do teacher trainings, administration, professional development in a new way. We bring in Legos, Play-Doh. We really get people talking with one another and acting together, but they're still learning and they're still practicing the concepts for this new future of work.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much for being with me. I'm excited to have you with me next year when we do an event together, live and in person, maybe the head and heart of something. I don't know. That's just what's popping in my mind. For our listeners, again, feel free to write comments, ask questions to either one of us. We'll make sure we respond, whether you're on LinkedIn, Facebook, or YouTube. And I will just give one last plug. My Stuck to Soaring kicks off in January. And so we have people that are feeling stuck and ready to soar. We're going to do our first meet and greet tomorrow for those that are already signed up. Otherwise, we'll launch January 11th. And my passion, my call, my dream is that you never let the disruptions of your life define you. We're all going to have them, but we get to decide how we come out of them. Better, bitter. I prefer better. I'm Annie, and I'll see you next week on H3 TV. Thanks for being with us.
Bye-bye.